admin board having left New Vision.
No,
With Patrick holding your hand.
No, I didn't scurry.
No, I'm joking, yeah.
I'm still on, by the way, on very good terms with the government.
If I have a problem in Uganda, can you call up the president for me?
I don't talk to the president so much these days, but I can call other people on your behalf.
Very good.
And even 3 years ago, I was awarded the Nalubali Medal, which is for civilian contribution to the anti-imperialist struggle.
Seriously?
Seriously.
My goodness me, you can't buy that. You can't buy that in Bishar Street.
Yeah, so no, I'm still on good terms there.
Yeah. So how did you end up setting up this paper with Patrick?
What happened is, as I said, like New Vision came to an end. I think it came to a natural end. 20 years is a long time running any business. Yeah. If you're the owner of a business after 20 years, you'll probably think however well your manager has done, maybe another manager could do better. And so if Museveni was the owner of the business and I was the manager, you know, it was the right time to part. And also I'd done it and I'd wanted to do different things. Yeah. Patrick Kwaku and I in 1993 started Capital Radio in Uganda. Yeah. And because I was politically connected in Uganda, that's how we got the first FM radio license.
Well, it's very good of you to admit that. Many people wouldn't admit that in Kenya. So, but, you know, that's how things work.
Yeah, I went to see the Minister of Information, who was, in fact, the Prime Minister today, Ruhakana Rugunda. Yeah. And we were given a license. We didn't have to pay anything for it, by the way.
Very good.
And no backhanders, nothing. It was just we got a license. Yeah. And then we scurried around looking for investors. And we got Capital Radio off the ground, started in 94. And in about 1998, 1999, Patrick, who'd lived and worked in Nairobi, said, I think we should start a radio station in Kenya because it's a bigger market. Yeah. So that's how Kiss FM came to be started in the year 2000. And then I didn't get your phone up, by the way. When you called up for presenters, my phone was Mateja that day. I don't know why. Anyway, so out of the radio came the paper, basically. Yes, but we were hunting everywhere for presenters. Yeah. And I can remember driving along in a taxi with Patrick somewhere in Nairobi, and we were listening to Capital, in fact, and we heard this woman on the afternoon, and Patrick and I said, she sounds okay, and then we went and had a drink with her in Grand Regency. That was Caroline Mutoko.
And look how far she's come from.
The first recruit.
Unbelievable.
And but so after about 6 years, after about 3 or 4 years, Patrick, who is a compulsive entrepreneur,
he's Ghanaian, is he?
He's now Kenyan.
Yeah, but I mean by birth, let's say. In the same way that the Bahrainian athletes called Kipto are Kenyan, but perhaps Bahrainian.
Yes, Patrick was at one time Ghanaian.
He was one time Ghanaian. Okay.
And he wanted to start a newspaper. Let's start a newspaper. And I kept saying to Patrick, really, should we start a newspaper? And he said, no, let's go for it. Yeah. And then basically when the job came to an end in Uganda, he said, right, let's, and he went around looking for investors, put in money from Radio Africa, and we started the Star in July 2007.
And it's done very well. It's third most read paper in Kenya.
Yes, right? And but also massive online.
Massive online. Yeah, we talked about the online, but you must, as a journalist, also have some of the frustrations that some of us people who are semi-literate, when you read a paper and the grammar is appalling and the spelling is appalling, and that's universal on most Kenyan papers. You open a paper and you just think, why don't they have an English school teacher with a ruler just slapping a journalist when they write this?
My personal rule, and also in Uganda where we got the same complaint, is I didn't worry so much about the grammar or the spelling as long as the meaning is comprehensible. What really...
this is where it all begins then.
What is very frustrating and very difficult is if you read a story and you can't make head nor tail of it. But if there's a little bit of grammar that's not quite right, or spelling, and the meaning is clear, you know, no problem from my point of view.
Gosh, okay. But one of the things I find interesting is...
mental clarity is what's necessary.
Mental clarity. Note that if you're an aspiring journalist, mental clarity. But one of the issues I find very interesting is if you open any paper today, you can ostensibly see on any one page which pieces have been paid for. And I know there's a big push by all the owners of papers to say our journalists are not corrupt, and the Fifth Estate is held up as this great beacon, usually by surveys run by the Fifth Estate. But how do you deal with this fundamental issue, and anyone in the public eye comes across it regularly, where you're being asked by journalists to pay for a story? I'll give you an example, sorry. The other day in one of the papers I saw some son of some former assistant deputy minister had got like a C in O-levels, and it was in the paper. Now that would not be of any national interest other than that journalist was paid to put that story there. I mean, how do you deal with that sort of nonsense?
Well, first of all, if someone demands money, a star journalist, I would say call me and give the information to me, and I'll deal with it. But I think it's a very. I know there's money changes hands, but it's also a very complex issue. But first of all, if something is leaked, anything is leaked to a newspaper, people give it with a reason. If we were given the NYS documents. The Star was actually the first to publish the IFMIS documents of NYS, showing that maize and sugar and stuff had been bought for twice as much as it costs in Nakamat. That was actually given to us by certain people. I can't say who it was given to us.
Do you know who it was?
Yes. And someone at the top of this government wanting to embarrass
somebody else,
another person at the top.
So they weren't doing it for the public benefit, but more probably to do with internal politics and squabbles and so forth.
And so, but the point is that every bit of information that comes to a newspaper is given to the newspaper for a reason. Someone has got a motive for giving it to you, whether it's to publicize your new product or whether it's an internal document to sabotage someone. So it's always, the business of news is always something like an economy, where a trade-off. And I think what journalists have to do is somehow edit and curate this information and try and put it in a balanced format. But we should not think that anyone ever gives you information dispassionately for free.
Well, there's the old saying that news is news that people don't want you to know about. That's why it becomes news.
Yes, but it's not they don't want you to know about it, but someone does.
Someone else does.
That's why you were given it.
Can I ask you, are we then, by a natural extension of that, going to see the end of journalism? Because all you become is a collection point for, any of these stories, and you just
No, I think it's Corridors of Power, which is a popular part of a gossip section. That's a popular part of the Star. This week, an MP was calling me, complaining that he had categorical evidence that some of our people were being paid by a governor to put negative stories about him and a senator in the paper. But I investigated it, and if he's watching it now, I've been meaning to call him, but I'll call him tomorrow. I investigated it. The person he claimed he had categorical evidence who was being paid is not actually the person who sent in the story. The person who sent in the story is a local correspondent. The local correspondent may indeed have been paid by the governor, but the governor wasn't paying the person.
People are smart. You're not. If I bribe you, I'm not going to bribe you directly. I'll do it through one of our friends.
No, but you wouldn't. If I was going to bribe you, I wouldn't give the money to your driver. I would give it to someone. I would give it to someone more senior.
How do you know how I work? That's interesting. That's interesting. Now, listen. One of the things we're going to have a break shortly, but I'm very intrigued also.
And we need to move the bench forward because it's starting to rain.
It's going to rain, and well, somebody's having a heck of a party up there. But we'll move shortly. One of the things I want to come back to talk to you after the break is the whole issue of censorship and the intelligence services and you guys. I mean, for us guys on the street, we're constantly wondering to what point is the government getting involved in what you publish. We'll come back very shortly. You're watching JKL, Jeff Koinange Live. I'm Chris Foot at CK Foot. Remember the hashtag ThisManPike. We've got William Pike here. We'll be right back after this break.